apologize to our audience. Folks, we're back. As you straggle back in, you'll see that we are here. And I'm hoping that Ash can get on. Oh, so anyway, they had a couple of people jump off the USS Abraham. One guy tried and was rescued by another sailor. And you hear about this because of the instantaneous communication we have now via text, email, everything else. They had some former sailors on that said that the same things happened back in the 80s. These guys have been deployed for like 270 straight days with 40 days of combat. So they don't know exactly why they're spinning in, but they just are. And it's an emotional deal. Come on, people, join me back on Facebook. I'm here. It is live. Come along. Dead air is the killer of radio. I wouldn't blame you right now if you change the channel, but I'm just trying to get you to bear with me till I get folks back up and running. And we're trying. We're doing that here. There's just nobody here at this moment. So I'm waiting for the comments for people to check back in. There you go. Stephanie Connie got the feed. That's a start. Hello, friend. I'm going to have lunch with Ron Koshin today. Warriors weekend, Ron. We're going to discuss the fallout from the Palace Bingo situation last week. I think Ronnie's just working me for a free lunch, but we're going to try to figure out how to make sure everybody is happy. Yeah, we're on YouTube as well. For those of you on YouTube, apologize for the technical difficulties. I'm not certain that you have ever gone away on YouTube. Now, I'm adding Ash in. Ash, are you there, brother?
I'm here.
I did it as quick as I could. I had to go completely. The computer allowed me to refill what I had already written in the studio space. But as you know, it just takes a few moments to go back.
That was a weird restart because you had to restart everything. Usually it just restores all the pages and we're good.
Yeah, the computer went off. I mean, it just said, we've got to shut down. So Stephanie Connie, Jordan Glass, and back again, Torrin Bales.
So I was having a good – Katie Jackson says she's going to call you. So
she did call me, but I was in the middle of a restart.
Okay. Yeah, because she spent 2 tours on 2 different carriers, and she's got some perspective that I think I think it's important to get out there. So, Katie, if you're listening, give us a call.
I told her to do. I'm going to call her.
Okay. But I think this is a product of the lowering of the standards of in the last 30 years of our military and what it takes to become a recruit. And listening to guys this morning talk about their time on the aircraft carriers who were months at sea. I think one guy said during the Gulf War, if I'm not mistaken, he was gone for almost 2 years.
See if our phone works. See, it says it's calling her, and it says she's there, and I don't hear her on this phone. Katie, are you there? Can you hear me? She's just not here, Ash.
All right, I don't know. I can't.
You know what? It's not every day, and I mean this sincerely. He's got obligations and stuff, and it's not every day that I miss the commander. But it just chaps my fanny when things don't work. And I'm sorry. That's a weakness of mine. So, Katie, I can hear you, but I've got you on a speakerphone. So tell us what's going on. I'm going to give you the floor. So you take it. And I'm not going to say another word until you're through speaking. Tell us about the Navy.
Okay. Having done 2 carriers, having done a 7 months deployment and an eight months deployment, yeah, it sucks. You get to a point where you have what we call UDT milk, which is ultra processed not needing to be refrigerated milk. We get powdered milk. We don't get all the luxuries of home. Well, we're out conducting the nation's business. When I was in the Gulf on the USS Abraham Lincoln in 2008, we got unrepped every 8 days. We took on jet fuel. We took on all kinds of stores, be they repair parts, food, you name it. We took it on. And yeah, it became redundant. It became upsetting. It became sad because it was always the same thing. When we were in the Gulf, we got into what's called Groundhog Day, where every day is the exact same as the day before. And it's really hard to get through. It takes some mental fortitude. Now, me being a Gen Xer, I have mental fortitude all day. But the millennials who joined, especially those who joined under the Biden administration, were fed a pack of lies. They thought everything would be, sunshine and lollipops and, we'll go from port to port like the Love Boat. And that's not the Navy. The Navy is out there. Carriers are 90,000 tons of American diplomacy. Okay. What is our job? We put warheads on foreheads. We launch and recover aircrafts. That's what we do. And we get supported. We get 3 hots and a cot. Nobody guaranteed you'd get Chick-fil-A or Chili's or anything like that. There's no Starbucks on board. You're there to do the Navy's business. And those that cannot are the little whiners you're hearing. I had commented somewhere, I think it was yesterday, that, the problem with these kids is they still have helicopter parents. And so their parents like, oh my God, little Timmy doesn't have half and half creamer for his, coffee, or can't get a bowl of ice cream whenever he wants it. Yeah, it sucks. It sucks. But you signed up for a job and you do the job. Sorry. You get a lot of benefits out of doing that job. A lot of these kids probably joined the Navy and to get the GI benefits so they can go to college and get a useless degree or for whatever reason.
Well, Katie, do you feel like these people that we're dealing with, Ash says that maybe the standards of the military have been lowered over time. Do you feel like we're dealing with to a degree, a DEI situation here? Is that what the Biden administration brought to our military?
Oh, yes, definitely, yes. I mean, I was so excited when Pete Hegseth got rid of DEI in the military, because the military, a lot of people in Congress, especially Democrats, think that the military is a social experiment. We are not. We are not there for your social experiments. We are there to put warheads on foreheads. So with the lowering that had to be done during the Biden administration, because none of us red-blooded Americans wanted to join that crap, this is what we get. We get people whining and complaining because they can't have the creature comforts of home while they're deployed.
Well, see, I agree. Ash, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I remember when there was a lot of furor over David Robinson. Remember? He played basketball at Navy, was going to join the San Antonio Spurs.
But he was a submariner at 7 foot tall.
Yeah, and there were people that were critics of why'd you put him on a submarine when he's that tall? And they made a bunch of
They did that so they could get him out of the Navy because he was the best advertisement the Navy ever had.
Yeah. But remember, that was a controversy because he got the Navy on, he did a lot for the Navy back then because, when David Robinson had success, all of a sudden Navy applications went through the roof.
Yeah, of course. His nickname in the NBA was the Admiral. I mean, he was very pro Navy, and I respected him a lot.
But this country was mad because we were making an exception for a guy who signed up for the Navy to not go into the Navy. Now you've got half this country, the Democrat half, mad because those that signed up for the Navy are actually in the Navy,
Right.
and they're not getting a vacation on the Love Boat.
Well, and you can recall, if you go back to when you weren't born and I was a little child, Roger Staubach wins the Heisman Trophy in 1963 at Navy, and you're in the beginnings of the Vietnam War era, and Roger Staubach deployed on a naval vessel, and people were like, man, and he's like, they're like, hey, he signed on to join the Navy. That was part of his free education. And sure, they kept Staubach basically traveling around, encouraging the troops. That's what he did for the most part. But then when his tour was done, he came out. I mean, he did the tour of the Navy.
Yeah.
Came out when his service time was complete. That was what my father always said was so disheartening about Muhammad Ali was the Army wanted Muhammad Ali, but he would have done nothing but fly around and fight exhibitions just to promote the Army. As I've gotten older, even though I'm not a Muslim sympathizer, you have to appreciate, or you should appreciate, the commitment to his faith that Ali made, because surely someone in our government sat down and said, look, Cassius, we're not gonna put you in a uniform and send you into battle. You're way too valuable. And I think Ali kind of stood by his convictions and said, no, I'm not going to play your game. But whether you comply and go or you abstain through protest, these folks that are on the Abraham, they signed up to be there. And there can't be a much better place. Every ship in the water around you and every plane in the air is there to protect that carrier. It's not like you live in mortal fear every day. Am I wrong, Katie?
No, you're right on that. I mean, I can't tell you, all battle groups are different sizes, but you got a couple of destroyers, you never know how many submarines, because we never know about the submarines. And you've got Sea-Wiz, you got the rolling airframe missile, carriers are very protected, all the way down to the deck plate with the Sea-Wiz. And it's the safest place to be when you're in a battle. No guarantees, obviously, but it's one of the safest places to be.
I can't imagine being on a submarine. I mean, I did hear several people that called in. I was listening to Mike Slater this morning, and Slater said, well, if you don't want to be on an aircraft carrier, why don't you just get on shore and let that gun, fly over your head in support? You can go on the ground and get after it, or you can go underneath the sea for months at a time in a submarine. That, I think at some point, I can get claustrophobic on a 737. I can't imagine being on a submarine for 6 months breathing recycled air.
Well, I saw something yesterday too that said there's been
went onto a submarine to fix something in radio. And I'm claustrophobic by nature. I just always have been. And I was in there for 3 hours, and I felt like I was holding my breath for 3 hours. The space wasn't big, obviously, because you don't have big spaces on submarines. But, the closeness of the equipment, the closeness of people, it was difficult. I could never have done that. I give all the guys in the silent service a huge Bravo Zulu, because it's something I could never do.
And hence you didn't sign on to do that either. So
exactly. One of the things I think, a real quick aside, recruiters, I could go on and on about recruiters, but if recruiters are trying to meet their quota, they will tell these kids, yeah, you'll never have to go to sea. when I was in boot camp back in, oh my God, we actually had guys in our brother company who did not know how to swim and were afraid of the water, but they joined the Navy.
Wow.
I can't figure that one out. And we had what was called work week, where it was about in the middle of boot camp, where you took a week, you either worked in the gal, you worked here, you worked there. It was just something to break up the constant monotony. And I worked at the pool for a couple of days. And I was cleaning. I wasn't swimming or doing any of those things, but and I was cleaning. I was this, I was that, and just watching these guys who would rather pump out 1,000 push-ups than put their toe in the water. I'm like, why did you join the Navy? Come to find out, the recruiter said, "Oh, you'll never have to go to sea."
Yeah, that's dangerous.
It still continues to this day. There are still people that go to boot camp and don't know how to swim.
That's
there was probably some truth to that back then, because when they were recruiting them, we weren't out more.
There's no, when you're on a ship, no matter what that ship is, you are 911. You are rescue response. You're the EMTs. You're all that stuff. And if you get to a point where you have to jump off your ship, you're not jumping off in a lifeboat. You may have a life preserver on. Who knows? You're jumping off the ship, or you're going down with it.
Well, hey, Katie, thank you so much for the call, and thank you for your perspective. That's Katie Jackson down in Aransas County. You'll know that she's the partner too, and I bet now she's like the master chief to the master chief on our own Navy SEAL Bill Posey, as they direct a lot of the political fortunes of these counties. And we really appreciate her calling. Ma'am, you're welcome to call anytime. I apologize for the technical difficulties. When Commander Cody gets here, I will have him review what's going on.
What I find interesting about this whole thing, I saw a story yesterday that they've had 54 replenishments since they've been deployed. They've been gone for 260 days. That's one about every 5 or 6 days, just doing my ash math.
Yeah, big helicopters.
But yeah. And the media keeps calling this a record deployment. And I wanted to see, well, is it? So of course it's not. And again, it's the dumbing down by the media of us.
Yeah. So Torrin Bale says, thank you for your service, Katie, and that reflects all of us. Johnny Houghton adds, after months of MREs, I bought a goat off a local farmer.
He was in the Middle East for months.
He said he got close to trading a box of grenades to eat a real meal. Yeah, but you know what? And by the way, that is, we joke about it, but I've sat at the feet of the great and true American hero, Bill Posey, and a Navy SEAL, an astronaut rescue guy, a frogman, a UDT guy. He did it all for real. He is the guy they make movies about. And he talked about how in Vietnam that his forte, his claim to fame as an insurgent Navy SEAL, was his ability to barter with the locals, that he would leave and come back with a truck full of fresh water. He would leave and come back with the tools they needed to work on their equipment that didn't come with a toolkit. Bill Posey is one of the absolute most interesting gentlemen you'll ever meet. He is a kind and gentle soul, and when I spend time with him, I'm always amazed at how Ash, and you know what I'm saying here, there's no doubt that in the day, Bill Posey had a switch that he could flip that made him an amazing warrior. And at the same time, I've never known a more gentle human being than Bill Posey.
Yeah, he's got the ability to compartmentalize like nobody
Absolutely.
I've ever known. And he was a strapping young lad too. He was a good-looking fellow when he was a young guy.
Oh, there's no doubt. He looked like a beach bum, blonde hair, huge, just a huge built guy. truly an American hero, Bill Posey.
Absolutely.
Right
So
here.
So the media keeps calling this a record deployment of the
It's
Abraham
not.
Lincoln. The USS Hornet spent 495 days at sea in 1944 and into 1945 as World War II was coming to an end, served all over the Pacific Ocean. And I mean, I don't recall one report of an attack on the Abraham Lincoln. I can't imagine the USS Hornet wasn't the subject of an attack several times during that 500 days at sea during World War II. And no reports of anybody coming home complaining about their conditions on the USS Hornet or any other naval vessel during World War II. A, they were happy just to come home. And B, they realized they freed the world from fascism, Nazism, and communism.
Well, you have to wonder also how much of it's a matter of pride, right? I mean, and in that generation, we had a whole generation of men that came home, say from World War II, that PTSD is not new. PTSD is not a new thing since Iraq. It's been around forever. The difference I heard back in the era, the difference I heard between what exacerbated PTSD and the stress of post battle was that in World War I and especially in World War II, you had a front, you went to the battlefield, and then you went to the rear, which might involve some R&R or some rehab or just a time to rest. Whereas they said in Vietnam, the battle was constant, the stress was constant because the battle came from all around you. It wasn't that you went, today we're going to go into the jungle and fight. You were already in the jungle and you never knew when a group of folks was going to come up behind you, beside you, surround you. So there was a constant stress. The difference is, and in stereotype, not flattering or belittling, the World War II veteran came home, lived with his pain, hid his pain. Studies now show much higher proclivity to alcoholism and things like that because they were too proud to seek help, or they didn't know that their brother next to them lived with the exact same pain. Yeah. Whereas the Vietnam veteran, in stereotype, came home and somewhat used it as a crutch, right? That was the stereotype. I've known one of my dearest friends is Norm Burgess. He was a medic in Vietnam. He no doubt saw it all. Doesn't mean he doesn't have demons. There's plenty about his service we've never spoken of. But he is a very faithful man. I've no doubt that being a man of faith helps in those moments to be able to, as you say, compartmentalize. I say is being able to transfer that anxiety, to your God. But he never made those excuses. I think about when I was at Texas, there were hippies on the street, and quite often they were high and they were either sophomores or they were wearing, a camouflage jacket. So Pat Visconti says, hey, I wonder how many of these sailors and Marines will claim PTSD to get medically separated and come out for sitting on a ship. It's coming, and others will do drugs on leave and get discharged. Yeah, I agree.
What's interesting in researching some of this stuff, the average deployment for a carrier is 6 months. Sometimes it gets stretched to 8 months. The men and women on board the Lincoln, they're not much beyond an average deployment, and they're going and I'm not going to say they are. I think it's a couple of nut jobs
out of 5,000.
Out of 5,000, I think it's a couple of soft nut jobs who weren't home as they were promised to be.
Right,
6 months down the road from their deployment, and now helicopter mom and apparently one overprotective wife of a guy who tried to jump overboard is blowing up social media and
And the leftist
and the
media
regular
seizes on it. It
Absolutely
probably
they
happened
do.
under Joe Biden as well. Ricky King says a lot of World War II veterans didn't have PTSD as bad because they had 2 months on a float. So they had 2 months on a ship with people like them, other vets that they could talk to, instead of leaving the battlefield on a Thursday, getting on a C-130 and being home the next day. And Pat Visconti says they were soft before they deployed, and they want to work the system for disability ratings.
No, I agree. I've said that. I believe it's because we've lowered the standards to get into the military over the last 50 years.
I know a guy that works in military health, mental health, physical health, and all that. Active duty military young man, officer. And he said that there is a systematic process, Ash, that is passed on from military guy to military guy that helps them defraud the system. When you're getting closer to getting out, hang on, Bobby. When you're getting closer to getting out, the thing you do is start, well, my hearing is bad. And you try to get to a level of permanent disability that will get you the benefits you want going forward. Good morning, Bobby Leister. What do you got?
Good morning. So my stepson is in basic training for the Navy right now. He's been there about 5 weeks. We've had this process since he was a junior, and we talk to these recruiters and this and that. And man, they make it sound like it's paradise. Now, I sit there and I talk to military people, that Navy, Army, all that, and they're like, man, they're selling you, a pile of, what. And I said, well, I agree. And I tried to tell him and his mother, hey, it's not going to be like that. It's like we sat down, you have to sit down with the recruiter, and they have a call with people. And so I'm asking all these hard questions. And the one recruiter goes, were you in the military? I said, no, I just know a lot of people that were. And I said, I know it's not all you're selling him. I said, I want you to tell him the truth. I said, because I don't want him to get in there and in a year from now, he says, well, this is not what I want. Because right now there is no electronics. There is no outside world. There's no nothing. We got to talk to him 2 Saturdays ago. We're going to hopefully talk to him this Saturday. And he's like, well, I'm homesick, and it's regimented, and I'm like, that's the military. That's now once you get out of basic, it's not as bad. I said, just you have to suck it up and go. Well,
but Bobby, isn't that a huge part of it that you've got to learn to rely on your buddy next to you? The military wants to systematically break you down. The routine is there to give you stability. That stability,
discipline.
That routine nature is what ultimately may save your life.
Right. And that's what they told him. And I told him, I said, get a buddy. And he's found some buddies, and he's got some buddies there. They lead a prayer group and stuff. And, in these these letters that we get and stuff. And I'm like, just keep driving. Just, you try to keep them positive. Once he gets out of basic and he has to go to what's called A school, where he learns his trade, it's better. It's that basic training, is so. But that's my 2 pennies in the nickel on the thoughts.
Well, we always appreciate the call. That's our own Bobby Leister. That's the guy that would remind you that today is pre-call to Tuesday, Wednesday. Right, pre-call to Wednesday, Tuesday. That's what it is. Veracruz Restaurant inviting you in for everything but a steaming bowl of caldo del Reyes today. By the way, since he's not here today, I think it's safe to say, Junior Samples, prayers for you, buddies. You're getting your knee replaced. Yeah. But it is a good time to point out that I think Junior Samples was a buddy for a whole bunch of sailors on whatever ship he was on. Allen's Wrecker Service, 578-6300. Allen's your go-to tow-to. Alan Miller, one of the integral. Yeah, I made you laugh, didn't I, Ask? He's one
still
of the
laughing.
Integral. Well, at least there's you. Sponsors of the upcoming breaking news. Whoa, inquiring minds want to know. November the 6th is the tentative but fairly well shaded day. Pat Visconti, Tammy Williams, of the 10th anniversary party of the Wade and Carter show. And the 5th was a raucous yacht themed event. We don't know what the theme of this one will be. Maybe the theme will be the USS Abraham. We're going to take you into the Club Westerner, keep you there 240 days, and feed you powdered milk, and you're going to like it. But November the 6th, Club Westerner, very tentative, but very potentially.
You know, you put enough Kahlua and vodka in with that powdered milk, it still tastes like a Black Russian.
I remember a guy telling me when I was younger and impressionable that he was a pilot, an F-4 pilot, and landed those planes on a aircraft carrier. And I said, man, I knew him as a Scotch drinking rich guy in the late 80s. And he said, you know, son, after you've been flying all day, after a while, you start to look forward to an Aqua Velva and Coke. Went services, went electrical for all your electric needs, whether you need a plug dropped in a barn or in a home, new ballasts so that your existing fluorescent tube lights can switch to LED. You can't just change them. You need help. Call Went. They will help you. Parvita Wellness in the Vita Cafe. Yesterday, they'll give you 10 meatballs. If you just want meatballs, they're about the size of a golf ball, not quite. Big shooter marble meatballs. And they're good. And Donnie
big Steelies.
Yeah, and she broke them up and did eggs, cottage cheese, and cheese with. Oh, they're just phenomenal. The meatballs are great because there's no filler, no gluten, no waste.
She makes good meatballs.
They're awesome. Get by Parvita today. And then USA Foundation Repair, Charlie Garcia. I hooked him up with torn bales. USA Concrete Coatings is coming out to help seal a slab on one of Torn's many projects. And they got together and cut a deal for USA Concrete Coatings to work for Torn. So once again, advertising with Wade and Carter is a winner. So
absolutely. You know, Tammy Williams has a good point here. So Bobby, being a good dad, told his son to hang in there. Unfortunately, you have a kid whining to their parent and the parent takes third-hand info into the news. It's candy for the media. I mean, if we were like them, we could take that. We would do that.
Right.
We would be, oh,
no.
His son is being mentally tortured at Navy basic training.
No doubt. And it's exactly like, and you and I talked about this years ago, but the media still fixates on Donald Trump separated families. Donald Trump put kids in cages. Donald Trump simply utilized the assets that were built by Barack Obama. Barack Obama is the guy that put up chain link separation facilities at the border. And if you think about it, it makes perfect sense. Everybody knows, Barack Obama knew, that a large percentage of the people that were crossing our border illegally weren't good people. In a humane effort, he said, let's put the kids over here away from the child molesters, and let's put the adults over here. In fact, let's go a step further. Let's separate the men and women. It wasn't misogynistic, sexist, racist, homophobic. Wait, wasn't any of that. It was common sense. But when Donald Trump does it, he's a Nazi. He's going to put the women and the kids on a train and send them to Auschwitz.
Which is just deflection from what socialists and communists actually do.
That's right. And
speaking
nobody
of which,
seems to really see it. They don't see it, Ash.
No. You found an interesting poll this morning, and I think it's a good segue into that, because we've had this discussion on the show. We've challenged the Democrats in Victoria to come on the show and discuss why they are aligning themselves with Democrat socialists. And now we find out through a new poll that close to 2/3 of the Democrat Party believe in communism.
Yeah, and here's the deal, Ash. Too many of our listeners, the Mike Gomez, the Peter McNally, the good people, they're good people. They want to believe because they're so anti-Trump. They're so old school Democrat they're like, no. We are just a normal middle of the road Democrat. They don't realize when we say correctly, per usual, that the Democrat Party has left them. A new CBS News, maybe the most conservative of the big three, but clearly that's like saying a conservative trial lawyer. He's still a liberal. He just isn't as liberal as, Bernie Sanders. So CBS News YouGov survey found that of all Americans, 42% hold a negative view of socialism. 35% signaled approval of a system where the government owns and controls the means of production. When broken down by party affiliation, the results tell another story. The Democrats, whose party is being taken over by leftists, backed by the Democratic Socialist of America, hold a positive view of socialism despite the tens of millions of lives the ideology has destroyed in the 20th century alone. This is from CBS News. This is not Brent and Ash. A staggering 58% of Democrats support socialism. Only 18% said, no, I don't like it. I don't want anything socialism. By way of comparison, 14% of Republicans hold a positive view of socialism, and 74% expressed a negative view. So when you look at it that way, the Democrat Party, which is being infiltrated and highly influenced by the Democratic Socialist of America.
The infiltration's over. Yeah, they are the party.
They are the party. Just as you could say, just as one of them could say, the Republican Party is MAGA. And I don't have any real way to refute that. I know that personally, I don't know of anything about MAGA that I hate. Sealing the border, America first, taking care of our allies. Those things don't offend me. But I'm not a right-wing extremist either. I don't view myself that way. But I would rather go from being a middle-of-the-road rhino Republican to a constitutionally driven MAGA than I would go from being a LBJ Democrat to being a Democratic Socialist. And the problem those folks have, Peter McNally's, Mike Gomez, others that listen to the program, is that the party is there. So they either have to decide to leave the party, as James Carville did. Hey, I can't support this stuff, man. I might be a Democrat, but I'm not a leftist idiot. Or they have to make apologies for it. Mike Gomez is the king of, James Tallarico's a fine young man. I mean, I watched the deal the other day.
His identity is so wrapped up in the Democrat Party that he couldn't leave it.
No, that's right. Yeah.
And I think that's why some of these longtime Democrats refuse to acknowledge what's going on within their own party. But when 60% of your party says, yep, bring on the socialism, you're a socialist party. You're a communist party. You're no longer the Democrat Party that used to represent the working man, the common man. You always believed government was going to play some role in saving these people. But now your party outwardly and rationally supports communism because socialism is just the stepping stone to communism.
So
and you won't back down from it. You defend it, you excuse it, but you don't back down from it. I don't know a Republican who sits there and goes and defends the fringe white nationalists that try to glom on to the Republicans, because we remove ourselves from those conversations.
100%. Like
Immediately.
I don't make apologies for or ever consider accepting the white nationalists, the Nazis, the white extremists, the white power fools. Those people are idiots and an embarrassment to my race.
Absolutely.
Yet
To humanity.
The Democrats can be fine family folks who just don't like guns. They don't necessarily believe in pro-choice, but they're willing to give that to the party. But now all of a sudden they've got to embrace men and women's sports, because if they don't, they're not in the party line. That's a problem to me. And the Republicans, the MAGA movement, doesn't stray so greatly far to the right from my own ideology as I believe if I were to spend time privately with Peter McNally, who's a fine gentleman, the left has gone so far left that he can't even comprehend. I want you to listen to this for a minute. If it gets boring, Ash, you just wait. Ash, look at me. Just give me one of these. If it's boring, wave me off. But I wanted to play this for a minute. Let's listen to this. This is Joe Pags from the Joe Pags Show on James Tallarico.
Believe one thing, but then he tells you something completely different. James Tallarico is the Democrat Senate nominee from the great state of Texas. It's a pretty hot race between him and Ken Paxton. Tallarico claims that he's a Christian, and I want to believe him, but then he keeps on saying things like this.
One is maybe the most insidious. It was a new state curriculum that would teach Christian Bible stories as historical fact, as the only truth to our youngest students. And I mean kindergarten, first graders. These are kids who aren't able to think for themselves yet. They haven't formed their own worldviews. And to push propaganda, to push indoctrination on those youngest students is deeply immoral.
So he's a Christian, but he thinks the Bible's propaganda. He's a Christian, but he thinks biblical stories aren't true, aren't real, aren't the only truth. I'm not sure I understand how he's a Christian. I, as a Christian, believe that whatever is in the Bible, the Christian Bible, the New Testament, and certainly the Old Testament is important as well, is true. I believe that it's fact. So telling biblical stories as historical fact, for me, is telling the truth. James Tallarico, the Christian, doesn't think that's so. In fact, he's calling it indoctrination. This is the same guy that said, a woman's right to choose is actually supported by the conception of Jesus. Oh, I kid you not. This is the guy, when asked who he loves or what he loves outside of politics, he talked about the trans kids. So James Tallarico, is he a real Christian, a fake Christian? Are you a Christian, and do you align with him? Please fill me in, because I don't get it. Come on.
There you have it. I mean, I can't help but emphasize that James Tallarico is a puppet of the extremist left, that the guy was a junior high teacher. Then he decided, after entering politics, to go to the seminary, and now he portrays himself to be as he is the Christian, loving, kind side of the left.
According to Tallarico, it's bad to teach Bible stories to kids. And if I remember a lot of those Bible stories, they're from being a kid. They're about doing good, treating people right, blah, blah, blah. Instead, and I don't mean blah, 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 I'm just, et cetera, right?
Don't worry. You haven't been struck by lightning yet in Goodwell, Oklahoma.
Came close the other night.
Right.
But so it's bad. He calls it indoctrination of having these kids being read Bible stories, but he has no problem with the transvestites walking into a classroom and reading stories and teaching them about being a transvestite.
Or guys riding bicycles in through the middle of town in a parade nude. Pat Visconti says, I'm just saying, I don't see the right burning down cities, attacking law enforcement, and rioting or protesting over an organization that's been doing the same thing since 2003 with illegals. All because they didn't get their way. It was 2016 through 2020 on repeat. Ash, do you remember when you and I talked about Kyle Rittenhouse?
Yeah.
And do you remember that Kyle Rittenhouse was a young man who hitched a ride? I think he actually crossed a state line with an AR-15.
I think his
which
mom drove him most of the way, if not all
turned
the way.
out to not be illegal. And he went, if I recall, to stand guard, protect like his grandfather's store. Am I correct?
Somebody's store anyway.
Somebody's store that was family member or something. And while he was there, he was attacked. Even though the man's holding a rifle, he was attacked by 3 people, all of whom had records, and one of them, just picture.
Somebody tried to club him with a skateboard, if I recall.
Yeah. So in that moment, yes, Scott says, didn't he live there? But I remember. So forget my logistics of he crossed the state line or whatever.
Well, he did. He lived close, but I think it was where Wisconsin and Illinois kind of join. He was on the Wisconsin side, or Indiana side, went over to Illinois, if I recall.
But he legally owned the weapon. He was old enough to possess the weapon. And Pat Visconti points out the end of the story. Kyle is a hero who took out a pedophile. At the end of the day, he was deemed to have acted in self-defense. He did not initiate the confrontation. These guys brought a big mouth to a gunfight and they got killed. So there are people now who try to translate that, it's what the losers always do, right? They look for a transitive win. Texas beat Texas State, but Texas State beat Army. So Texas is better than Army. I mean, I'm like, okay, whatever. Did you play Army or not? At the end of the day, the left is saying, well, MAGA, they love Kyle Rittenhouse, who just shot a guy, but then they're upset with the school teacher that kicked the lights out of the ICE agent's vehicle, and then later on showed up at another place protesting, and sooner or later he, messed around and got shot. You remember this guy a couple of months ago? So they're saying that it's the same guy, or the lady that we can't be sure if she actually tried to use her car as a vehicle. She certainly did not avoid a confrontation while interrupting an ongoing law enforcement operation. So she got, shot. And they're saying the MAGAs like Kyle Rittenhouse being a vigilante, but they don't like the fact that this lady was just killed in cold blood. And I'm like, the two are not equitable. They're not the same thing. Kyle Rittenhouse was protecting property of family from bad people who were rioting, who happened to be leftist. And leftists happened to have gotten shot for interfering with law enforcement. But yet the left wants you to believe that, well, it's just a MAGA thing. And that's how the media portrays things. And Pat, I agree. Kyle Rittenhouse, in the same breath that I can say, yeah, he's a hero, he took out a pedophile, I can also say, and I said it then, he probably should not have been there. And Lisa Poole points out it's his grandparents' property.
I just did a quick fact check, and apparently
I probably would have been there.
Well, no, apparently it was owned by another family. He has association with them. They weren't kin.
Okay, so fair enough, but apparently it was within the law for him to be there and support them.
Yeah, and it was in Wisconsin. He went the other way from Illinois to Wisconsin, I think.
Yeah. Ricky King says, I want to know if Tallarico thinks the Quran is true stories, but the Bible is just stories and indoctrination. It's just very interesting, the perspective of, I've never had a problem with the true separation of church and state. I don't believe that a government should declare to a people, a populace, this is the religion of the state. You will be Catholic or you will be Presbyterian. The original intent was to prevent anybody in the colonies from saying you will be a member of the Church of England. That's why they left. They left to get rid of religious oppression from the crown. But at the end of the day, there's nothing that they've, and BJ Nelson, when she's here, can tell you the law. It's something like the strawberry law. I don't remember what it is, but basically the Supreme Court has ruled that it's okay to have the 10 Commandments, for example, in our schools, because that's the foundation of our founding. It's who we are. But at the same time, I don't think that you and I have ever cheered a situation simply because it involved the right, nor have we necessarily just bemoaned a situation because it involved the left. I think the left is programmed to complain about anything from the right.
We might have bemoaned the Chaz and the Chop and all that
Well,
garbage
that was all
during
criminal activity, wasn't it?
during the summer of love, but it was all but it was all embraced by the left and the Democrat Party.
Let's jump over here real quick. White wing materials, whether you need sand, gravel, aggregate, topsoil, fill dirt, anything you need.
Yeah.
White wing
Any
materials.
dirt need? 920 sand.
920 sand. Peter, I'll get to you in a minute, and I'll let you have the last word, sir. Chesnick Furniture, Chesnick and Love make your house a home. Get in and see why you just always do better at Chesnick. Chesnick has the best furniture, best American-made furniture. That's a brand. They also have all the bedding, appliances, artwork, and
accoutrement
that you may need. Palace Bingo, where friends meet friends. Get into Palace Bingo. It's a great, great facility, a 7 charity supporting facility. Get into Palace Bingo today and play their wonderful games. You will love the time you have at Palace Bingo. Very quick aside, there is no better bank around than First State Bank of Louise. There is also no real Astros update because the Astros traveled yesterday and will play today. Astros, First State Bank, 2 champion organizations. Peter McNally says, that's the second time I've heard Brent say something derogatory about teaching junior high. No, I did not. Like that's less than qualifications to be a candidate. LBJ was a teacher. LBJ actually went to, at the time, Southwest Texas State, or it was actually Southwest Texas Women's College, I think at the time, I don't know, and studied education. You're right. He always had an eye towards politics. There is nothing derogatory, nor was anything said derogatory about being a junior high teacher. The comment was made, the left tries to glorify James Tallarico as a man of God. He's a pastor. He's got to be believed. He's so empathetic. The man was a junior high school teacher. If you think that qualifies him in this day and age to be a United States senator, when he can't even figure out what he believes about Jesus Christ,
or that a man is a man and a woman is a woman.
There you have it, Pete. There's the rebuttal that you need.
Well, and Bruce Woods brings up a point I was just going to make. LBJ fixed elections. Yeah. LBJ was as dirty and as probably as racist a person as one could ever meet, but he's embraced by the left.
There's no doubt LBJ was a huge racist. He basically said, if we do this in 1964, we'll have those ends voting for us for 100 years. LBJ was a huge criminal. So many believe, at the very least, knew about and was complicit in the assassination of John F. Kennedy. Absolutely. Power hungry to the max.
Yep.
LBJ is not a good poster child for a school teacher. He is less than
He's not a good poster child for a human. He was all about himself. He deceived people. He fixed elections. He stole votes, stuffed ballot boxes, burned the evidence.
Oh yeah,
it's all there in black and white. The history's there.
The books yeah. Bruce Wood says his wife was the mastermind. Lady Bird was no lady. Folks, we've reached the top of the hour. We love you all, and I hope that you have a great day. Ash, yep. I'm going to let you bail. And folks, we will talk to you mañana. Bye, everybody.